Good morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, out of Voice of Radio. So today, we're looking at a new Pokemon tool card, and this one is going to make a difference. I am absolutely convinced that at some point, maybe very, very soon, maybe in a little time, at some point, this is going to make a pretty big difference. And I need to give a massive shout out to lovely Antoine Boulet here, who not only has given us our translation, but has also done some ridiculous photoshopping of this new Pokemon tool onto some relevant Pokemon cards, which we are definitely going to use throughout the video. And oh my goodness, they're brilliant. But what is this tool and what does it do? Well, according to Antoine, it's called Longview Scope. And it is a Pokemon tool that reads, attacks from the Pokemon this card is attached to deal 30 more damage to your opponent's benched Pokemon GX and Pokemon V. And remember that, yes, that will include VMAXs, and yes, that will include tag teams. So any Pokemon will get the extra damage, but it will only do the extra damage to Pokemon GXs and Pokemon Vs. And honestly, for me, my very, very first reaction here was, oh look, it's another trick for Pikachu and Zekrom. You see, Pikachu and Zekrom's GX attack does 200 to the active and 170 to one of your opponent's bench Pokemon. And one of the things that's happened recently is that instead of having to use Dedenne as a basic 2-prize Pokemon to get set up, we now have the option of using Dedenne or Crobat. Except Crobat has 180 HP, which means you're not necessarily getting a one-hit KO. Well, you're not getting a one-hit KO, you're 10 damage away. Until you attach this. Now, all of a sudden, those people that would have got a KO on a Dedenne but won't get a KO on Crobat will now be able to get a KO on either of them. And make no mistake about it, that makes a big, big difference. It means that all of a sudden Pikachu and Zekrom has gone from hitting 170 to the bench to hitting 200 on the bench. And incidentally, that's not just Crobat. Something like a Cramorant V, which, yes, obviously this is good for Cramorant, we'll get there in a minute, but Cramorant V might be sitting there on the bench ready to be used in the future. Well, it's got 200 HP. Oh, look. Now you're getting a KO. And I know that most Pokemon Vs have more than 200 HP, or at least the vast majority of the relevant ones do. But this still makes a whole heap of a difference and means that you will get a KO on some of those there on the bench. And I am checking through the relevant Pokemon V at the moment. Eternatus V, 220. Centiskorch V, 210. Zacian, 220. You're not, unfortunately, getting many of the relevant Pokemon V here, which is kind of sad. But then again, there's always some weird list we can play with stuff like, I don't know, Galarian, Zigzagoon or something, just to get that little bit of extra damage. Hey, while we're talking about lightning Pokemon, how about Raikou Amazing Rare? That is one of the ones that's coming along in Vivid Voltage. We're rather excited. Free energy, 120 to the active, 120 to one of your opponent's bench Pokemon. And look, I know as well as you do that 150 isn't going to KO a bench GX or V. But you also know as well as I do that this is going to make a difference. And that this is going to KO Pokemon in 2 hits that it would have taken 3 hits, etc, etc. I mean, now, instead of hitting 240 when you attack twice of Raikou Amazing Rare, you're hitting 300. And going from 240 to 300 is absolutely gigantic. It means a Zacian, after Lucario and Melmetal's use their GX attack, okay, fine, they'll basically, their 30 less will just get rid of your 30 more, but that still gets you a KO where you wouldn't have otherwise. And Arceus, Adalga, and Palkia now goes down in 2 hits to this. So this actually allows Raikou Amazing Rare to go and get 2-hit KOs it wasn't getting anyway. And I suppose we might as well mention Cramorant here now that we teased it earlier. Free energy, discard all energy from this Pokemon, and then you do 160 to one of your opponent's Pokemon. So now you've gone from 160 to 190, and again, probably the biggest bonus we're getting here is that now you're not just KOing Dedenne, you're also KOing Crobat. And make no mistake, that makes a gigantic difference. Partly because at the moment people can hide behind Crobat, and secondly, when we get to next September, which I know is a year away, but still, we all know that's going to come faster than we might think, all of a sudden everybody is forced to go into Crobat when Dedenne rotates, and now we are getting KOs on them as well. And this is huge. Obviously, Pikachu and Zekrom will also be rotating at that point, but Cramorant won't. And we've seen Cramorant be played in Welder decks. So you Welder for 2 energy, attach, boom, off you go, get that KO. Cramorant is going to remain good and relevant as we move forward. And this really is kind of a ridiculous thing. This is going to help so much. And then, of course, we get to Salamence. Salamence is awesome. I love Salamence. Saw quite a bit of play in Japan initially. He's not been that hyped over here. We'll see what happens. But Salamence V, for free colourless energy, again, Welder will do rather nicely here. It does 30 damage to each of your opponent's Pokemon. And this is where a tool like this can really, really come in handy. Because you see, Longview Scope does 30 more to your opponent's bench GX and Pokemon V. So if your opponent's got 4 GXs and Vs on their bench, you're not doing an extra 30 damage here. You're doing an extra 90, 120, up to an extra 150 damage hitting the field. That could be huge. Now all of a sudden, Salamence is doing 60 damage to bench GXs and Vs rather than 30, and that's gonna make a difference. That is going to get you to some KOs a lot faster. Sure, you're still not getting one-hit KOs, but let's take something like ADP. If you hit it on the bench with Salamence, it goes down to 250 HP. If you hit it with Salamence with a Longview lens attached, all of a sudden it goes down to 220 HP. And something like a Zacian can get a KO on a 220 HP Pokemon, but ordinarily not a 250 or 280. Oh, would you look at that? And then, of course, we could mention Salamence VMAX for 1 energy does 40 to 2 of your opponent's Pokemon. Well, if you're hitting GXs and Vs on the bench, now all of a sudden you're doing 70 to 2 of your opponent's Pokemon on the bench. And that's kind of ridiculous. And they really were the main ones that sprang to my mind. Initially, I mean, if we have another look around, there are plenty of other Pokemon that can use it. Something like Inteleon V for a single energy does 40 damage to one of your opponent's Pokemon. And you can actually kind of do it wherever you like. And, you know, this will do extra damage. This will go from 40 up to 70. Unlikely to get you any giant KOs, but still, it's there. It's something to remember. Toxtricity from Rebel Clash for 1 lightning energy does 20 damage to each of your opponent's Pokemon and poisons the active. This will now do 50 to any GXs or Vs on the bench. And while we're here, it is worth pointing out Noivern. Now, Noivern's a Pokemon that, I'll be honest with you, there is a genuine chance that I am the only person in the entire world that remembers this card exists, because I never see anyone else talking about it. But free retreat, single colourless energy, 20 to each of your opponent's Pokemon. It's very similar to Toxtricity, but it's got free retreat. It's a colourless energy, but it doesn't poison the active, which means if you can afford to go for the lightning energy, Toxtricity is probably the better option because of the whole poisoning the active thing. But certainly any Pokemon along those lines would be good. And certainly, if you're playing a deck which is there to try and spread damage, I don't see why you wouldn't want to play this. In a spread deck, and admittedly, there are not many spread decks around at the moment. It's not really a big archetype. But remember, this card's going to be legal for a couple of years. It doesn't have to be right at this moment. It could be any time in the near future. And at some point, there's probably going to be another spreading deck that comes around. And when it does, this is an absolute no-brainer. It's phenomenal, over-the-top, brilliant. I mean, a Lowland Sandslash GX. Now, I've seen some people try and use this, and admittedly, it rarely works. But it's got a GX attack that allows you for free energy to do 100 to each of your opponent's Pokemon that already has any damage on it. Goes up to 130 here. Bearing in mind, I know you can only use once during the game. But remember, you've got Misty and Lorelei, which is that supporter card that lets you use a GX attack on a water Pokemon, even if you've already used your GX attack this game. So you can use it kind of over and over. And again, you drop 10 damage, 2 attacks now from Alolan Sandslash adds up to 270, rather than 210, assuming there's already 10 damage on there. And 270 is enough to get a KO on a Reshiram and Charizard on the bench. It's enough to get a KO on a Mewtwo and Mew on the bench. And all this goes to basically tell you, all of these examples, all of this discussion, should be telling you the following thing. Someone is going to break this card. And it might not be today. It might not be with our current card pool. Honestly, the fact that Cramorant and Pikachu and Zekrom can now KO a bench Crobat, that alone makes this a really good card. Because seriously, not being able to KO a Crobat but being able to KO a Dedenne hurts those cards. But it's so much more than that. And maybe it's Raikou Amazing Rare. Maybe it's Alolan Sandslash GX. Maybe it's a card that hasn't been released yet. Maybe it ends up being good against a card that hasn't been released yet. But there is so much potential in this card. I'm giving it 4 Wassies, and honestly, there is an excellent chance that ends up being a very miserable, miserly score. But I'd like to know what you think. So let me know in the comment section, would you? Go nuts, be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at The Wassie, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCG Radio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that good stuff, head on over to patreon.com/PTCG Radio, or you can do exactly that. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.